how can I completely set apart myself from anyone else in the industry, in the space, so I don't have to worry about competitors? And we've done, thousands upon thousands of them so far, and only continue to kind of grow and expand. So it's really different. We have a lifetime warranty. We back up our stuff. It just, everything that we have makes it to where the value is so much greater than what the expense of it is. When I start a business, I don't care. I don't care too much about my competitors. We thought, man, how cool would it be if we could actually give back somehow and help elephants through the work that we do with our brand? Like how cool would that be? Because they're an endangered species, and there's, a lot of controversy around.
A lot of business owners get stuck just working in their business. They are, as you said, owner operators like your dad, like yourself before you bought his business. How does someone break that cycle?
Because it forced him to have to go out and find someone else to come in and do the work, find someone else to come in and do the sales. Like, why is that?
All right. Welcome back to another episode of Marketing Without Rules, the show where we celebrate people who exemplify the hunter mindset. They make moves, they color outside the lines, and they have found creative ways to channel the attention of their community into currency. This show is sponsored by Blue Crocus Solutions, a web design and SEO agency focused on helping home service companies. I am your host, Lewis Vandervalk, and today I have the pleasure of chatting with Brandon Vaughn. Brandon is a Guinness World Record holding, ADD-powered systems nerd who has turned his creative chaos into a superpower for scaling businesses. Aside from scaling Wise Coding from 0 to 2 million per month in less than 4 years, Brandon has helped over 20,000 service business owners unlock new growth while escaping the grind of doing everything themselves. He also now helps entrepreneurs find those elusive killers to help them run their businesses through his new venture, HireBus. Brandon, welcome to the show. Oh, you just muted yourself there. I'll just get you to unmute there real briefly.
Oh,
there we go.
Thanks for having me, Lewis. Yeah, I like those who color outside the lines. How'd you know that I like to do that?
That's why I reached out to have you on the show. That's what it's all about. Cool. Yeah, looking forward to chatting. I've been following you for a while, and this is our first real conversation. So I've got some questions here. I know it's going to bring some value to people just based on, what I've learned from following you. But let's get the elephant in the room out of the way. You are bouncing up and down as we're chatting. That doesn't, look like just a bouncy chair. Talk to us about your treadmill journey.
I decided to start getting more steps in my daily basis. So I bought a walking treadmill for my desk, and now I walk between 9 and 13 miles a day, and pretty much on Zoom calls like this, 7+ hours, and end up getting a lot of steps in along the way. I lost about 45 pounds and like 15% body fat over the course of about 5.5 months doing it. So it's been a huge benefit for my health. That's for sure.
That's amazing. Do you find you have more energy as well?
I find it feeds the ADD entrepreneurial monster brain a little bit. My family is always making fun of me because they call me the ping pong. When I'm on a phone, I'm bouncing back and forth in the front lawn, walking back and forth while I'm on conversations. And so oddly enough, it's actually been something that's been really, really good for me to just kind of lock in and focus, because It's keeping me busy, kind of gets me tuned in a little bit more. So I think that's probably been one of the biggest benefits.
I love it. That's awesome. Very cool. Let's go back to where I believe your entrepreneurial journey started, and that is you purchased the company from your dad. What was that process like? And I couldn't actually find info on this. Are you still running that?
No, I sold that in 2018. Sold that.
Amazing. Yeah. But walk people through that, because that was kind of your initiation into home service, right?
Yeah. Well, maybe not my initiation, but probably the first time when I decided to put on my big boy pants and actually grow a business. Yeah. Before, I had done other things. I had a construction company. I had my own window cleaning business. I went out and did a corporate job for a couple of years after I tanked my construction company. And the time in 2012 was when I decided to jump in and buy my dad's business. He was just diagnosed with heart disease. He had been running it as an owner operator for 33 years. And literally at that point in time, the doctor told him no more physical work. So the business was just kind of faced with shutting down. And it was doing about $8,000 a month at the time. And that's what it had been doing for, a couple dozen years. And I told him that I'd buy it for $3,000 a month for life. And what that would do is kind of set him up. It was just enough to be able to supplement his Social Security so that he could retire and wouldn't have to worry about working anymore physically. And, then I had this big expense in the business and kind of had to figure out how to grow it at that point. So that was the next challenge to kind of solve and tackle, because I'd never done that before. I'd never grown a business before. I just also ran a lot of owner operator businesses before that.
Amazing. So what was it that, I guess I'll ask the big hitting question here. If you were to start any business over, if you were to start from scratch in a new business, I know you're doing this pretty consistently, what is, the first thing that you do when you jump into a business?
One of the first things I kind of dial into is try to figure out like what will really make me different. I like to be really obsessed with finding out how can I completely set apart myself from anyone else in the industry, in the space, so I don't have to worry about competitors.
Yep.
And usually that involves me sitting down and saying, okay, what are the customer's biggest pain points? What are they actually looking to solve? How could I solve this in a way that provides the absolute highest tier level customer experience for them? Even the prospect experience kind of blows their mind. And what are the things that they'll talk about at the dinner table or at the Thanksgiving dinner table and say like, wow, we just had this unbelievable experience with this company that we brought in. And when I started Wise Coatings, that was like some of the first things that I sat down to kind of really think about. And anytime I launch a company, I kind of start with that.
What were some things you did with Wise that you think really drove home that customer experience?
Well, the biggest part that I'd say we focused on was, first of all, the technology. So we have a very immersive type of customer the prospect experience where, we start out and our first initial conversation that we have when we send our salesperson out to the job site, there's an Uber style tracker that shows exactly, when they're on their way. We send a photo of the salesperson with proof of their criminal background screen and a little bio on them, so that way they kind of know exactly who's going to be showing up to their home. We do a full discovery process at the customer's house. We have demos. We make little samples up of, epoxy versus polyaspartic and, have them, snap and break things. We go into their garage. We record a video. We do scratch tests. We do, we take like sidewalk chalk and we mock up certain areas. And we just do this really big over the top presentation. We have a 3D visualizer tool so they can actually see exactly what their space looks like in augmented reality. So we can show exactly, like we can stand with our tablet in their garage and we can show exactly what their garage floor will look like live while we're standing right there. So they can pick their colors and they can see how it matches, everything else. So laying in on that side of it, and then all the way to, the end, we roll out the red carpet when we bring the reveal around and show them the finished product before we leave. The follow-ups, we have automated brownies that go out afterwards. We have lots of, touch points and automations that kind of go through that part as well. We adopt a baby elephant in their name for every single floor that we do. And we send them like a, baby elephant adoption kit they get in the mail that has a picture of the elephant that they adopted, so it's just
okay,
like,
can you just pause there for a second? Like, because my mind is like, you guys are going to be doing thousands of floors. How many baby elephants out there are there to adopt?
Well, it's a metaphorical adoption through our partner, the World Wildlife Fund.
Sure. It's kind of like planting a tree in their name, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of how that goes. Is you basically sponsor a baby elephant, and it shows which baby elephant you're like sponsoring. So it's really cool because every floor that we do that, and we've done thousands upon thousands of them so far, and only continue to kind of grow and expand. So it's really different. We have a lifetime warranty. We back up our stuff. It just everything that we have makes it to where the value is so much greater than what the expense of it is. And because I can do that, like when I first launched Wise Coatings, we had 27 companies in our Portland, Oregon metro area that did the exact same kind of service. But when I start a business, I don't care. I don't care too much about my competitors. I just think about how can I just provide the best customer experience possible.
That's what it's all about. Yeah. I'm just reading Jesse Cole's book, Fans First. And it's I'm really in that groove right now with my brain. So I love that. The elephant thing is so cool. The second question I have about the adopt an elephant, the elephant, stuffy, that's just fantastic. That's coloring outside the lines for sure. Did you think of that before the brand, or did you just start thinking of all the different ways you could kind of envelop the brand and feel good moments?
I thought of it during the discovery process. Yep. And by the way, there's a YouTube series called Map to a Million for those of your listeners and viewers that want to go check that out. I recorded 16 episodes that kind of showed, every single step of coming up with the name, brainstorming different names, what could be the different hooks. And the elephant really was cool. There's a lot of Wise that have an owl or, that type of a mascot character. And I picked the elephant for several reasons. One, everyone loves elephants. They have really good memories. They're loyal. They are also highly intelligent, and they paint. Their suit of the elephant is known for literally painting with their trunk, and then they're very tough. They are durable. So like all of this kind of played into the overall story. That's one of my favorite things, is to kind of think about, what's the brand story that you can kind of, tell. And when the elephant kind of came up in conversation, we thought, man, how cool would it be if we could actually give back somehow and help elephants through the work that we do with our brand? Like how cool would that be? Because they're an endangered species and there's, a lot of controversy around, what's happening with them. And so it just was kind of a natural aha moment to do that. And then we figured out the logistics of how to do that.
That's incredible. We got Spencer in the house today. I know you guys are both local to each other there.
Yeah. What's up, Spencer?
Spencer's a good friend of mine as well in the agency space. So
right
cool
on.
to see that. Love it. So as you're acquiring the electrical business or having done that and rebranding and all of that, you're doing that same process all over again, I would imagine.
100%. Yeah. It's the very first thing that we're doing in buying this business is thinking through how can we have a brand story? How can we have this story arc of taking this electrical company who's been stagnant for 40 years, flatline growth, come in, implement technology, implement automations, implement a brand, story and a customer experience that is just like any other electrical company that exists out there in the space. And we have some really freaking cool stuff that I can't wait to start showing people when we launch our video series, Forged by Fire. It's going to kind of walk through every step of the way, including buying this company, how we did it, what that looked like, and every step, what the budget is. We're going to be super transparent with all of it.
I'm excited. I actually just finished Maps to a Million. I followed it pretty closely for the first bit. But guys, you should check that out, the YouTube series on starting wise codings. And I got to go finish the series there because it's cool. But I'll be checking out Forged with Fire as well. I teased the Guinness World Record at the beginning. We can't just leave people hanging forever. I will come back to that. So stick to the end of the episode, and we'll definitely hit the Guinness World Record there because that's pretty cool. But you also do Conquer. Are you still involved with that actively? I know you started it and okay.
I sold it. Yeah. So I started it in 2019 and ended up selling it just in the last couple of years. So completely out of that side of the business. And it was an amazing, incredible experience. It's in good hands now with House Call Pro, which is the company that I sold it to. And since then they rebranded it and they've, made it their own. But awesome part of the journey.
Very cool. I want to tap into some parts of your brain from that part of the journey, which of course you carry over into everything you do now.
Yeah.
But a lot of business owners get stuck just working in their business. They are, as you said, owner operators like your dad, like yourself before you bought his business. How does someone break that cycle? What does that look like? I know that's a very, very broad question and multiple podcast episodes there, but in a 2-second version, what would you start with for someone?
If you're stuck on the truck, there's two ways that you can get off the truck. You can volunteer to do so, or you can be forced off of it. And I want to share a real quick experience. One of the gentlemen that I worked with, that I coached for a while, had a health scare that caused him to go in the hospital and was told by the doctor that he couldn't drive anymore. And with that revelation of not being able to drive, not being able to go up on any ladders, he was forced out of the field. And the interesting thing happened was his business actually doubled over the course of the next year because it forced him to have to go out and find someone else to come in and do the work, find someone else to come in and do the sales. Like, why is that? Well, it's because if you remove yourself as the bottleneck to the production side of your business, you allow potential for other people to take over production and then multiply the efforts of that production to be able to scale. You will never grow past a certain level until you get off of the truck. So it's a requirement for growth. And the faster you make it, the quicker you can actually work on parts of the business that nobody else is doing. And every time you kind of take this next step where you move off of the truck or out of the office or out of sales and you move into the next position, you're effectively kind of like delegating yourself out of a job. You're promoting yourself up through the company. When you start the business, you're the guy on the truck. You're not a CEO. You're not a business owner. You're a technician. And the value you're providing is that of a technician. So the faster that you're able to kind of walk through those steps and walk through that process, the quicker you're able to start adding a tremendous amount of value to your company.
That's hard. It's interesting you talk about the being forced to or volunteering to. I imagine the percent of people that volunteer is much lower than the people that are forced to. Maybe you can shed some light on that.
The percentage is much larger. Is that what you said? The volunteer?
Well, it feels like it's way harder to do it voluntarily. When you're forced to, you just come up with solutions because you're backed into that that corner, but it's hard for business owners, speaking from experience, to do that voluntarily.
Yeah, I think the toughest part about it is that you are letting go of control. And when you let go of control, you put yourself into a state of vulnerability. You now are reliant on the success of somebody else for the success of your business. And that's scary. You can't control it. And so, yes, someone will kill plants if they're, doing some work outside. Someone will break something of your customers. But the reality is you probably did that too. You probably made mistakes. You probably had an upset customer. You probably had all those issues that happened in your business that, a customer was upset with the service that you did or did that. But it feels different when it's yourself, because you can go in and make it right, than if it's someone else on your team. It's like you're angrier for some reason. Well, how could they? Well, they're imperfect, first of all, just like you are. And then secondly, they're missing systems. They're missing checklists. They're missing all the tools and resources that are required to be able to effectively let someone run a truck on their own. And I think that's the big part that a lot of business owners don't realize, is that if you give cheat sheets to your employees to follow, it makes their job a lot easier and it makes it a lot more consistent. Look at McDonald's. McDonald's is able to run multi-million-dollar restaurant locations using an $80,000 a year manager and a bunch of entry-level employees. And they're able to operate at good, profitable margins because they push a button and a cup comes and fills up with Coca-Cola and then moves through the line. Like, everything is just so systemized to a T. Their training systems are through the roof, and the level of consistency is always exactly the same no matter where you go in the world. So, we can apply that same level of systems. It makes that control part a little bit less of an issue because the systems are providing that level of control, as opposed to just having to rely on the brains of one of your employees.
What would you say to someone who gets that theoretically, but they're like, there's no way I can sit down and write out all those systems? What would you say to sell someone on the idea of systems, even if they get it theoretically, but they're just not doing it?
I would say that, if they get it theoretically, but they're just not doing it, that's a tough one. I'd say that the biggest thing that I try to kind of get them across the finish line is probably dig into their why a little bit more. Because if someone's not executing on something, the why is not important. Your why becomes radically important when something happens to you that's unforeseen, like a family member gets sick, you fall off a roof or a ladder, and then suddenly you are shocked into the reality of how fragile your business is. And there's a score that a business can have called the bus factor. And every business has this. How many people in your company would have to get hit by a bus before your business ceases to exist? For a lot of business owners, that number is 1. They're the person. If something happens to them, no more food on the table, no more income coming in. Like, that's a major, major, major problem. Maybe it's a key lead technician that you have, or your spouse. Maybe that number is 1.5 or it's 2. But the reality is that if that number is 1, your business is one small unforeseen accident away from completely going out of business. And, that's what I kind of saw with my dad was, he was able to make it okay for quite some time. But when it happened, he had no savings, he had no retirement, he had no backup plan. And then suddenly he was in this very, very, very terrible position, in the business. It was devastating to him. So, what is your why? What are you looking to accomplish with your life? What are your goals? Is it more time freedom? Is it to travel? Is it to, be with your kids? And, all of that stuff is kind of dependent upon needing to build out more systems and more people in your business, so there's more redundancy and it's more stable. And that's I think a big driver mentally for some people, that they need to be able to understand that, okay, I have to take action. I have to enable my business to grow more.
That's big. Yeah. And you have 30 some plus locations with Wise Coatings now, right?
Yes.
So that's you had to dial that in before you just exploded and then imploded across the country, right?
Yeah, exploded. Hopefully not too much implosion, although there's definitely some implosion that happens.
What I mean is, like, if you didn't have those systems and didn't have that dialed in at, the one location, once you go across multiple locations, it's completely out of your control to an extent, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Well, and Wise Coatings was unique in the aspect that, from day one, I did not do any work in the field, did not do any sales calls, and still have yet to answer a phone call from a customer. And that was all rules that I kind of set with Wise Coatings to kind of start it. A, to prove a point, that is, you don't need to know how to do everything in your business in order to grow a successful business. And in fact, if you do it that way, you'll grow much faster. Like, that was the point that I was also trying to make. But two, I had a full-time job. Like, I was CEO of Conquer. I had a coaching organization, with 30 coaches in it that, I had to run and I had to lead, and I had a lot of employees counting on me. And this was a completely separate side project that was mostly for the content than it was even for the purpose of the business, but I mean, look at how quickly you can grow it if you do kind of put those things in place. And, I think that was a big unlock for me, even mentally, to realize, like, okay, yeah, we could run this back, or we could go through the acquisition path, which is where I'm going now.
Very cool. Very cool. And then applying that, kind of to everything. So let's get into hiring. I think there's a lot of nuggets in there to pull out. It's something that you're focused on quite a lot now. And I think, I want to go through, you had mentioned to me earlier, we could even, pull stuff up on the screen. I'm totally down to do that. If you're queued up to do that, if you need a second to pull that up, that's great. But let's kind of go into the philosophy of recruiting. A lot of people, they need someone, and then they just, get desperate and get the first person that walks in the door, at which point, 2 months, 3 months down the road, they're like, everybody sucks. No one wants to work and no one cares about my company.
Right.
So you had mentioned, I think, something to me in your voice note. You said recruiting is a massive marketing problem that no one talks about or pays attention to. I know Tommy Mello puts a ton of focus into this as well, as someone who publicly talks about it. So let's dive into recruiting and your thoughts around that.
Yeah, so it is a marketing problem to solve. If you think about it from the direct parallel of going out and finding external customers, we know exactly what we need to do that. At least most business owners do. You have to advertise, you have to have good content, you have to have good marketing, assets like videos and graphics and brochures, and you have to have your messaging dialed in. You have to be able to tell a customer what actually makes you different. And then you have to show up to that customer's house, and then you actually have to do that different thing. Like, you have to do the thing that you sell. Otherwise, you won't get a 5-star review. Customer will never come back. They will absolutely leave you. All that same thing, same principles, they apply directly to your internal customers, which are your employees. What's a tougher sell? Going out and convincing a customer to get their home serviced by you, or convincing another human being to spend more of their waking hours with you in your business, helping build your company, and do it for years? Like, that is a tough sell. And if the messaging is, well, we need someone that has a clean driving record and must be able to lift 80 pounds, and we want to make sure that they're good work ethic, and we provide X services, and we're the top rated company in the area, which everybody says, by the way. Like, it is no wonder people that are uninspired apply to those jobs. You have to be able to inspire talented people that, hey, wow, this is a really good opportunity, and my dream is big enough to fit all of my employees' dreams inside of it. There's growth potential, there's opportunity here, because that's what rock stars want. They want to know that it's going to be someplace that can help them fulfill their dreams, because they're proactive and they imagine more for themselves. So if your positions that you have are entry-level positions, how can you find people that, can come in and fulfill that entry-level position, but then help them accomplish their larger goal of that next level, that next part in their career, whether it's with your company or someone else's company? What can they do at your business that says, that was the best place I ever worked, I learned such and such skill, I leveled up in this way, and then I got my dream job after that? Like, that's how you build a culture that attracts people. And that's where the marketing part comes in as well, is now you have to get that messaging out to people so that they can see it.
Sell them on the dream, accurately, but make it a dream, not just okay, cool, you can check the boxes of 80 pound, you can lift 80 pounds, etc.
Right. Yeah. And then go out and broadcast that message in as many ways and platforms as you can, not just one single channel, and that's all that you do. And then the reality is that, yes, there's the recruiting side. We do an awesome job of recruiting. We love hiring people through HireBus, but you should always be recruiting. If you're at Home Depot and you see an amazing store associate that just really knocked your socks off and did an amazing job, and you're thinking to yourself, man, why can't I find people like this to apply for my job? Well, tell them that. Say, hey, I think you're awesome. I think we should chat. If you're ever looking for a different opportunity, I'd love you to give me a call, because we're looking for talented talented people just like you. Maybe that's the first time they heard appreciation from someone in their company. And that was enough to get them to give you a call and, get an opportunity to maybe give them an interview. So, always be keeping your eyes open for talent.
That's big. That's big. Because there are lots of, if you look around, it's like every other business. The people that are complaining, my business sucks, my team sucks, they're looking around and be like, how did they get those amazing people? They're out there, right?
Yeah, it's funny. In Oregon, we were one of the last states allowed, was not allowed to pump our own gas. That was like a real thing in Oregon. And we had gas station attendants. And there was a guy that would, every time we pulled up into the gas station, he would run out to us with a huge smile on his face. And he remembered our names. Hey, Brandon, how's it going? Yeah, fill it up with premium. Okay, you got it. And then he'd go and he'd fill it up and he'd go run over to the next one. And I asked him, hey, I think you're awesome. Every single time you come out with a smile, you always, he has such a positive outlook. And he came and he interviewed because guess what? He didn't want to be a gas station attendant forever. And we brought him onto the team and he was amazing. He was an awesome hire that stayed with us for years until he found his next vision of where he wanted to go in life and he went and pursued that. He's doing amazing things, so it's you never know where that next person is going to be. And you should not be afraid to ask. In fact, we actually have business cards that say, you're awesome. We should talk for each one of my companies. And we actually hand those out to talented people. And we give our employees the ability to write their name on it. So our employees are also headhunters and recruiters. And they get a recruiting bonus for every person that they refer to us that ends up getting hired that stays with us for at least 3 months. So, you can base it on retention for some of those payout and bonuses. But everyone on your team should be thinking about, recruiting people and bringing people in.
That's fantastic. That's, just having the cards there built out shows how purposeful that process is internally, because you can be like, oh, guys, we'll give you a bonus if you bring someone on. But yeah,
can I share my screen real quick?
Yeah, I was just gonna say the same thing here. So you can present, and then it will pop up in the bottom, and I'll bring it on screen. So
cool.
At the bottom of the screen, there you go.
So these are what those cards look like, and this is what we had awesome. for All Clean. So really simple and easy. We have this spot to put referred by right here. Mm-hmm. Competitive pay that recognizes talent. Full benefits package. So we offered health, dental, vision, and 401k. Wow. Killer company culture. And the reason why I call this the gift is you are basically, and what I prime all of my employees for is I say, hey, let me tell you one of the greatest gifts that I have as an entrepreneur. I get to pick all my coworkers. That's pretty awesome. And I picked all of you guys because I think you're also incredible. How cool would it be if you had that ability as well? Well, you do. And this is how you can do it. These are the cards. You're going to hand them out to anyone who you think is awesome. They could be friends, family members, whoever. They could be just a random person that you meet that you just think is really cool and you just hit it off with and you think they would be fantastic fit here. Send them our way. We can't guarantee that we'll hire them, but if we do interview them and they are a good fit and we do bring them on, we'll give you a hiring bonus. And we'd pay out, $500 to $1,000 plus for really good quality people that would get sent our way. And it's massive. You just create a culture of, we want everyone to be on the winning Super Bowl team and we want other high performers just like you.
That's awesome. So HireBus specifically, what are you guys really focusing on? My understanding is you everything from sales to, entry level people. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, we do. We pretty much have, every single position inside of a home service company we recruit for, we place. For a lot of people, we actually end up going all the way to the place of getting. Hold on a second. Let me see, where'd this go? Let me pull up here so I can show this. There we go. So we bring in every single candidate through our standard careers page. So when someone works with us, we build a careers page. We build out an application process for the business owner. We write and split test all the job ads. Now, this is really important. Like, even if you don't use HireBus, post more than one job ad and try out different hooks. Like,
that's a marketing hack right there.
Yeah, it's marketing 101, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things that's interesting is, what works better? Pressure washing technician, pressure washer, or gas powered squirt gun operator? Like, wanted gas which one would actually do better?
Have you actually tested that third one?
Oh, absolutely. That's actually what we used to hire a ton of people for All Clean. We used wanted gas powered squirt gun operators. And we would get amazement. We also did Hunters Wanted was one that we did as well. If you have someone that is a a sports fanatic, like, put some job, or if you're ICP, your ideal candidate profile is someone who's competitive and loves sports. Well, put those little seeds in your job ads, like put your brain into the mind of your target ideal employee and then write to them. So a lot of our job ads, we actually write from a place of who you are, and we describe who they are. And we use a lot of our core value language in there. Like, you love leveling up, you want to serve others, you want to be recognized for the talent you do. You're a high performing individual. You want to work with other high performers, and we talk about who they are. Use the word you a lot more in your job ads than the words we. You want them to read it and feel like, they're being talked about.
They're reading their own bio, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. The way you've done it right is when you have people that say, I saw your job ad and it blew my mind. Like it sounded, it really touched me, and I knew I had to apply. And then they actually want to show up to the interview. They want to follow all the way through the process to the end because they're excited about the job, because it does speak to them. We also then post the job ads. We also do outreach. So we look for passive candidates that people aren't looking on job boards, but are, employed already. And we go find those individuals. We have AI tools that go out and crawl and find and perform outreach and bring people into the funnel from that method as well. And then we capture thousands of applicants. We communicate with them. We text them. We call them. We email them. Our AI tool will read and analyze the resume, extract out years of relevant experience, their skills. We'll pull up red flags, pull up their strengths, areas for improvement. And then we give them a right seat behavioral assessment that will score them on a scale of 1 to 10, how well they'll fit for that given position in your company, whether it's a lead technician, a salesperson, a COO, director of operations, office manager. And then we also do the first round of interviews and screening as well. So, we will call and talk to these candidates before we send them your way. So what that does is just get the top 3% of candidates is what our clients actually end up talking to. And what we usually find is it takes about an average of 200 applicants to get one good quality hire. And that's usually what it is. And most people, they'll do like a free Indeed post, or they'll do a Craigslist ad or something, and they'll talk to like 30 or 40 people, and they'll hire one person, and they'll wonder why that one person sucks.
I was going to say they talk to 5 people, get exhausted, and then just hire one of the 5,
Yeah,
the best out of the 5.
Yeah. And all these people aren't showing up to the interviews, and it's like, well, because they're not sold on your job. Like it starts the job ad in your messaging, and then it continues all the way down with how fast you communicate with them. Like speed to lead is everything, just like it is in marketing. You have to be able to message them very quickly, work them through the process. And when you have dozens or hundreds of people that come through your funnel, you're not going to read all those resumes. You're not going to, you'll miss them. Yeah. And maybe it takes you 7 days to get back to them, and they're already gone.
Yeah. What, you've kind of hit on it. I was going to try and dive deeper into what people do wrong when they're hiring. I will say, like, your whole process there that you laid out, it looks super cool. But if someone's doing it themselves, they need to be doing all that stuff too. Like it looks like super detailed. That's not just a hire bus thing. Of course, you've got some proprietary stuff in there, but like that's what every business owner needs to be doing. And if you're not, that's why you say your people suck, because you're not doing that.
Yeah. I mean, I ask business owners, when's the last time you called references of an employee? They list them there. When's the last time you called previous employers and, conducted asked them a few questions?
Yeah.
Most people don't do that because it takes a lot of time. They don't have time. But the problem with that is what you sell is not products, it's services. And services are delivered by people. So your product is your people. That is literally what you are providing your customers, is people that are trusted, that can come onto their property, that do a good quality job, that are engaging, have good people skills, have good technical skills. Like that is what a customer is paying you for, is for someone to come onto their property and perform something that they don't want to do themselves. And they don't want to just, bring some random person onto their property to do that. And so you're this matchmaker in essence as a home service business owner. And you're matching your homeowner with really great people that can come in and do a phenomenal job. If you can't deliver on that, you don't deserve to be in business. So your number one supply, your most important supply, is your people that you have. And if you suck at that and you neglect that, and you have this reactive approach that, well, if someone quits, then I'll put the job ads up, then you're screwed, because now you're going to be desperately hiring anyone with a pulse. You'll backfill a body of someone that's not that good. And now your quality is going to suffer, and your customers are going to suffer, and your business will ultimately suffer. So this proactive approach of just always be hiring 365 days a year It's what all of the big, most successful companies in home services are doing. And if you're not doing that, I get it. It's hard. It takes a lot of time, but that's literally why we designed HireBus too, was to kind of fill that gap.
Big deal. Yeah. So people can go to hirebus.com, spelled just like how it sounds. They can reach out to your team and make it happen. Really, really cool service. And so needed, because hiring is, I mean, we could go, again, we could make a whole podcast about this. You could write a book about hiring, but I'm going to circle back to where you said, they're backfilling a body because they're just stressed and they probably have more work to do because their person left or whatever. And then what's going to happen is that cycle just continues over and over, because now they've got a subpar person who's not going to do good work and probably going to quit because you're going to be upset at them anyway. And then you're just stuck in this cycle of getting subpar people when there's amazing people out there if you can put in the work to do it, which Brandon's team can do for you.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, when I had All Clean, we did this actually. I paid people, I had full-time people that did nothing but interview 365 days a year. And even when we were full and I did not need to hire technicians, we would still interview and we would still leave all of our job ads up. And what we would do is, as applicants came in, we would tell them, hey, I think you'd be a great fit. We're anticipating an opening coming up here very soon. Can I put you on our waiting list? As soon as that opening pops up, I'll reach out to you because I think you'd be amazing here. I think you'd be incredibly happy. I know that we would enjoy having you on the team thoroughly. There's lots of opportunity for growth. 90% of your people will say yes, sounds good. And then maybe you don't follow up with them for 6 months. So be it. But we would blast out a message to every single person on our waiting list anytime we had an opening or anytime we were going to, put on another truck on the road. And we could fill those roles in so fast. And here's a couple interesting things that happened with All Clean. One, we hired 25 people in 30 days when we launched up our season, because we would lay off people in the wintertime and then we'd rehire for the spring season. So we'd do a quick hire. And we did that mostly using our talent pool in our waiting list that we had. Mm-hmm. And then two, you have employees that just, they treat you differently. I can't explain it. Like when an employee senses, well, what are you going to do? Fire me? You need me. When they start to realize that there's this constant flow of people that come into the office for interviews, and that this is an in-demand position, checklists start getting done. They start showing and following the process a little bit more. And they realize this is a really desired job, and I should be grateful and thankful for it. It's like it communicates this odd power dynamic. And then you also have the ability to fire people, which a lot of people are terrified to fire people because they're like, well, now I got to go find someone and I got to do all this work. It's like, not when you have a bench. You have a low performer. You can, hey, let me go ahead and take another interview and bring someone in, and let's get this person trained up and we'll let this person go. And you're just, picking exactly the people you want. It really does a huge mental unlock for a business owner to be able to realize I'm finally in control of my company culture again.
Because people's your product. And if you can't have control over your product, then they're kind of screwed. All right. We can't leave people without the Guinness World Record.
Oh, I got that with Conquer. And, the timing wise was 2020. It's kind of perfect timing. COVID happened. Events were getting closed down left and right. And I decided to launch a virtual event and reached out to Guinness World Records and said, hey, what's your current world record for your largest business conference, world's largest virtual business conference? And they told me it was a big number. And I'm like, okay, I want to set out. I want to do an official attempt. What do I need to do? And they had us set up all this crazy infrastructure and track exactly, unique visits. And we had to set up this whole technical side to verify it all and validate it all. But we got the Guinness World Record for the world's largest virtual business conference. It was for an event that I hosted called the Home Service Super Summit. We had 40 speakers over 4 days. And it was incredible. We had over 21,000 people that came to that event.
Wow.
And, it was awesome. We had some of my personal heroes, quote unquote. Michael Gerber, author of the E-Myth book that completely changed my life. He spoke at that event. Just a ton of amazing humans. So that was really cool. It was cool to be able to do that. And record still stands today. So it's
a lot to pull that off for sure. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was good.
What is a out of the box marketing nugget that we can leave people with that we haven't chatted about?
Oh boy. I'd say probably one of the best ROIs of anything I've ever done for marketing. How about that? Should I share that one?
Yeah, I think you should share that one.
So I created that
was a hook, by the way, right there, guys.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So it's a nugget after the nugget.
Best marketing, best marketing campaign I've ever done was what I called the best of. And it was our best of campaign. And what we did is we took, I reached out proactively to 7 other businesses that had complementary offerings to our company. So in the case of All Clean, it was like pest control, lawn care, house cleaning, plumbing, electrical, HVAC, carpet cleaning, et cetera. And so, painting. And I found businesses, I went online, I found the top rated ones that had high Better Business Bureau ratings, lots of 5-star reviews. I wanted to have a minimum of like 5 trucks plus, so that they were a little bit larger. They weren't, tiny owner operator people. And I reached out to each one of these business owners and I convinced them to do a joint marketing co-op campaign. And in essence, what I pitched them was, hey, I want to create this 8.5 by 11 leave behind for our customers that's a best of Portland. And think of it being our own Angie's List. Oh. And I want to have tiles for each one of these that has our name, 5-star ratings, phone numbers, contact information, our picture, our logo. And then we'll print off 50,000 of these. We'll divide them up by the 8 of us. And then we all have to make this joint commitment that at the end of every single job that we do, we give a copy to our homeowners and we let them know, hey, by the way, we were awarded Best of Portland. And these are 7 other companies that we recommend that also have won. They're the top rated in the area, 5-star reviews, Better Business Bureau, et cetera. If you're looking for any of these other services, like these are the service providers that we recommend. It was literally the cheapest marketing thing I think I've ever done, because when you print up 50,000 of those, it's like pennies to print these things off. And then they're getting hand delivered with no postage at time of service when the trust is at its highest point. Yeah. And so we would, get people that would call us and say, yeah, I found you on your Best of Portland sheet. And oh yeah, we'd come into people's homes and we would see it like pinned up on the refrigerator with like a magnet. So it takes a lot of work. I'm not going to lie. Like to get the biggest pushback that we got was people saying, thinking that I was scamming them or I was a marketing company or something. And sure. The second biggest issue was some people just would not deliver them and not hand them out, so we had to kind of get some accountability, and we kind of turned it into our own little BNI group, sure. To where, we would get together, we would go out to lunch together. We kind of built like a little community around us. So you kind of have to nurture it and cultivate it a little bit more. But man, talk about insane ROI. Like we got hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of jobs from those, because it's the quickest way to capture tens of thousands of people on a customer list is to exchange customer lists with other people that offer complementary services to the same customer that you have. So awesome. That was it. That's the thing I would recommend.
That's anyone. The thing. Yeah, and you 8x your team, right? Because now you've got all their teams putting them out too. Assuming that they do it right, and you've cut costs, and that's fantastic. That's a great one.
Now, I've told this to a lot of people, and there's been a very, very small number of people that actually do it. Just because
it takes a little bit of legwork, but all the best things in life do.
Yeah, you got to cold call business owners and get through the gatekeeper to try to get to the business owner, and then convince them that you're not. It's not like it's just a whole thing. But every single person I know that have actually successfully done it, they've had the similar type of result where they just say it's one of the best marketing things they've ever done.
Incredible. Well, that's a great note to end on. Brandon, appreciate your time today. Thanks for coming on. Definitely have to chat again, because there's a ton of stuff we can dive into here. Wishing you all the best in your ventures, and guys, go check out what he's doing. And as always, find one thing from this episode and go apply it, whether it's hiring, whether it's that leaflet, whether it's sponsoring an elephant or finding something relevant to your brand to do. Go do those things, pick one, do it, and report back. But if you do things consistently, they work. Appreciate you, Brandon. Stick around for a second. I'll just wrap up off air, and then guys, we'll see you on the next one. Cheers.
Okay. Sound good. See you guys.